All right, folks, welcome into the AfterSchrock. Sorry, it took me a little bit to get that rolling there. We had a couple calls on hold I had to take after the end of the program. But yeah, so I kind of rushed through some of those stories there at the end because, of course, I got all the callers in the end of the program. So we wanted to get them in. I want to reward people for calling, but it kind of blows up the planning a little bit. I'm trying to pace the show, and I was like, oh, come on. But we got everything. We got everything covered that we promised to get covered. Just maybe not in quite the. This EMP story is scary stuff. So I want to go over this a little bit more in depth. So we can do that here on the aftershock because it's not technically like computer repair related kind of stuff, but it is technology related and it is interesting. I find it interesting anyway. So what we're talking about here is, I'll post a link here so you can take a look at the report for yourself if you want to do your own homework here. This is from the Washington Examiner. This is the Electromagnetic Defense Task Force 2018 report. While it focused on the devastating impact an EMP hit would have on the military, it appears to support a congressional warning that up to 90% of the population on the East Coast would die within a year of attack that would dismantle or interfere with electricity, transportation, food processing, and healthcare. Consider some of the warnings in the recent report from the United States Air Force Air University, Curtis E. LeMay Center for Doctrine, Development, and Education, citing figures from the Union of Concerned Scientists, the report. So these facts are from the Union of Concerned Scientists and are cited in the report. 99 nuclear reactors would likely melt down without electricity to cool them. Think about what happened in Japan. They had a tsunami, knocked out the power, which is kind of ironic because it was a power plant. As a result, they couldn't cool the nuclear fuel rods, so they started trying to use seawater to cool them just because that's all they had. And the whole thing melted down and now is a huge twisted metal pile of rubble and emitting tons of radiation into the ocean annually. 4.1 million would be displaced from areas around the nuclear plants as the radioactive clouds spread. Aren't we all glad the Ashland plant's closing down now? That wasn't such a good idea at the time, but now I seem to that's pretty good. All right, military and commercial jets, such as those built by Airbus, would be degraded. Alarmingly, aircraft designed to carry large numbers of passengers and people and sizable cargo are allowed to operate without certainty about their level of resilience, which means they're not tested for this. So the systems that they know on an Airbus 320 that would go down would be VHF omni-ranging, HF communications, VHF3 communication, distance measuring, marker beacons, satellite comms, direction finder, that's the compass. Well, that's important, I think. VHF communications, GPS system, secondary radar, collision avoidance, excuse me, the ILS localizer. Help me out, guys, I don't know what the heck that is. The weather radar, the ILS, I don't think the weather's the you're worrying about at this point. The ILS glide scope, the VHF-1 comms, and the secondary radar, collision avoidance, and the radar altimeter. So all those systems would go if an EMP hit in the area of an Airbus 320. Bases would be cut off, making defense and counterattacks impossible. Civil unrest would start within hours. There's a saying actually. I've read this somewhere. I forget what it was. We're 3 meals away from civil unrest. So basically, in the time of is it 3? No, it's 9 meals. 9 meals away from civil unrest. Basically, the people can keep their stuff together in a crisis for the first 72 hours, and then after that, people start to freak out. And the bigger the situation, the bigger the freak out. So within 72 hours or 96 hours, basically, you would end up with civil unrest, rioting, looting, things like that is where it would start, and it would go up from there. Power and GPS would go dark, and EMP would cause an instantaneous and simultaneous loss of many of the technologies reliant on electrical power and computer circuit boards, such as cell phones and GPS devices. So it's not just that you wouldn't have signal for your phone, it's that your phone would stop working instantly. Now this is where things get a little dicey. EMPs, there's different types of EMPs, and there's different intensities of EMPs. Terrain does play a factor. Antenna, anything with an antenna is going to get fried. That'll play a factor, but if your device is turned off, does it get fried? There's lots of questions like this. So basically, there's the possibility that some devices would lock up or freeze, and that a complete power cycle would bring them back online again. Some devices would be completely fried from this. And any device with an antenna would probably be completely fried, or any device hooked up to the power grid, like plugged in, because that's a giant antenna. Yeah, the power lines are a giant antenna. So failures may include long-term loss of electrical power due to loss of emergency generators because the power plants will be offline. Sewage, we can't pump water, we can't pump and process sewage. There's no fresh water. Banking services are obviously offline because everything is down. Landlines and cellular service, and a lot of vehicles. All of my wife's Ford Expedition has a dial. It's so weird. There's no gear shift. There's a dial that you turn to put it into gear. That's all computers, guys. The computer is detecting you've turned the dial, and it's making the appropriate adjustments to the transmission based on the setting on the dial. Um, we don't live in a mechanical society anymore. The power button on your computer is not an actual switch. It's a soft button that sends a command to the computer to turn the power on. So you can see things are kind of crazy. All right. No problem, guys. I love doing the aftershock. Good to see you, Carol. Good to see you, Mark. All right. The kicker here is it would take 18 months or more to replace key elements of the electric grid that would be damaged or knocked out. This does not include damage from looting, riots, things along those lines. This is just to replace the oh, I can't remember what they're called. There's a component. It's only made in Germany. They're hand wound, basically. The wire is hand wound around these things because it has to be so precise. And it takes 18 months to make them. They're incredibly expensive. I think they're transformers. They're incredibly expensive to make. So power companies don't tend to keep, a 100% replacement supply on hand. And so as a result, if you have a situation where all of them go down at the same time, you might get one or two of them back up, but your power grid is down until you get these replacements. Figuring out just which country launched the attack would be difficult because certain weapons can be delivered via satellite. Associated story. The Russians launched satellites yesterday, and the satellites, there were supposed to be 3 satellites, and there's going to be a booster rocket in space. And we track space junk. We track objects in space primarily so we don't run into them. Well, the things that were launched into space, the satellite technology is way more advanced than you guys might realize right now. So they're launching the satellites into space. There's 3 satellites that are supposed to be there that were announced. We see all 3 of those. There's the booster stage of the rocket that is there to get the satellites in orbit. We expect that will degrade and burn up over time. But there's a 4th item. So now the 4th object, is it just a piece of the booster that broke off or something that's floating around and being tracked separately? Or is it a microsatellite? The Russians are doing crazy things, and we are too. But the Russians are doing crazy things with satellites. They had a satellite that launched another satellite last year. So basically, they launched this it was the same situation as this. It was not an announced launch. It was coupled in with another satellite. And then we saw yet another satellite, like those little Russian nesting dolls. Another satellite pops out of that satellite. And these satellites are autonomously piloted, basically. So they are designed to maneuver. They're inspector satellites is what they're called. They're designed to maneuver within proximity of another object in orbit and examine it. So if you have a broken satellite, you want to fix it in orbit, a lot cheaper than putting a new one up, right? You can launch one of these inspector satellites. So some of them have robotic arms that can do things. Some of them have lasers that can do things. Well, they could also be used to, get in the way of a satellite or basically commandeer a satellite so you can tap into the communication network of another country. They can be used to completely destroy an offending country's satellite. The United States right now is actually, and this is something you don't hear a whole lot about, has been, and I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have something along these lines, working on stealth satellites. Satellites that are in orbit that can't be detected by normal means, which could be kind of controversial because if there's things orbiting the planet and you don't want to run into them, not being able to see them isn't necessarily a good thing. So these stealth satellites would be impervious to that attack because to maneuver into place and destroy the thing, you got to be able to see it. So there's a whole lot going on here. It also noted, the report did, that the development of 5G mobile networks and how they will communicate and why they must be protected is a big development because China is building all the 5G equipment. They're trying to take over the 5G market, and whoever makes 5G, okay, 5G is not like your router at home where you have the 2.4 gigahertz band and the 5 gigahertz band. This is the 5 gigahertz millimeter band. This is cellular. So at the 5 gigahertz millimeter band, you can transmit so much more information. 5G internet is going to make your home cable modem look like a joke. It's that fast. People who are on ADSL connections like Windstream, or any ADSL connection. In the country right now, that's the only internet option a lot of you have. Well, once this 5G gets in place, of course, 2019 we're going to start to see towers going up in Nebraska. By 2020, most cities should have it in Nebraska, and then of course the years following, it'll work its way out into the country. The good news is if they take down those 4G towers, you'll get an upgrade in the country from your 3G towers. But the thing with 5G internet is that it can push so much more bandwidth than the 4G can on the same amount of equipment that whoever becomes the leader of 5G technology by default is going to be the company that makes the internet available to the public. And that is a huge, huge thing to be in charge of, because it gives you control. That's why the United States can shut down websites. No other country can do that. We can shut down a website because we control, or we used to anyway, we control the ICANN network of domain registration. So we can just make your website unavailable. Poof, gone. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Lieutenant General Stephen Quast, the commander of Air Education and Training Command, said as EMP technologies fuse in new and often dangerous ways, it's critical that the military and industry make honest evaluations of the present and future conflict to ensure that we're proactive rather than reactive. He also advised for predicting how U.S. foes will try to outsmart any fixes to the electric grid. This is something to think about. Now think about this from like a terrorist perspective. You set off a small bomb, causes mayhem. First responders come to help save the people, and that's when the real bomb goes off and you kill the first responders. It's a demoralizing terroristic attack that goes after some of the bravest people that are going in to help, and it trains people not to help. And so now you just blow everything up and nobody comes to help is the idea. Imagine an approach like that with an EMP. French actions, the report says, French actions before World War II demonstrate that even bold actions such as building the Maginot Line can be rapidly overcome through imagination. The imagination that defeated the Maginot Line was the German Blitzkrieg, which unexpectedly exploited the only gap in the wall. Groundbreaking research like this can help. How is that groundbreaking? Gee, there's a line of fortifications that we have to beat, but all the guns point toward us. None of them point back. So if we can get behind them, we could like totally take them out. Hey, look, over here, there's a gap. Maybe we should put all of our equipment through that gap, get behind them, and blow it up. I guess that's imaginary thinking, as opposed to directly attacking. But if you're a person who prepares for these kind of things, don't, like after the EMP goes off, don't fire up your protected Faraday caged ham radio, put the antenna up, and hey, we're broadcasting live, because within 48 to 72 hours there's going to be a second EMP. That's going to take out the backup equipment. That's what I would do. Okay, the report written by experts, blah, 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 blah. The potential for an adversary to inflict damage on the states through an EMS attack have grown significantly. An EMP attack affects all devices with solid-state electronics and could render inoperable the main grid and backup power systems such as generators. Anything with a microchip is basically what they're saying. That's what solid-state is anything with a microchip. The highlighted lack of a reaction plan or major focus on EMP attack, even if just from a solar flare. See, this is the thing. Everyone's talking about like the Iranians or the Russians or somebody doing something like this. The sun did this in the 1800s and fried telegraph wires. That was a telegraph. You pump that kind of voltage through a microchip, you're going to cook that thing every time. So yeah, could you imagine they had no idea back then, right? They just and all of a sudden, like Joe gets blown across the room, boom! Oh gosh, Joe's hair's on fire. What happened? Yeah, it was just the telegraph wires acted like an antenna, caught the EMP, and then channeled that energy directly to the bam. So the sun can do this. Okay, so here's the thing. Someone's asking me online here, Marine's like, any good news here today? All right, here's the thing. There's not a whole lot you can do about this, right? But the biggest thing that you can do is to do some common sense stuff. Like, we knew it was going to snow today, right? So my wife and I went to the grocery store on Friday to get the stuff that we needed to make sure we had baby formula, to make sure that we had a couple gallons of milk for the fridge, just to make sure that we were set for the stuff that our kids would need and everything that we would need so that we could go, a week without having to run to the grocery store. Not a bad plan to have some food in the house, That's a good idea. Because like I said, 72 hours, you're going to hunker down in your house. If something like this happens, you're going to stay in your house for 72 hours. because you're not going to go outside. You might go look outside, talk to your neighbors for a little bit, but after 72 hours, people are going to start noticing who has the supplies and who doesn't, and it's going to get dicey. So you're going to stay in your house, right? So make sure you can stay in your house. A couple years ago, there was a huge snowstorm that knocked out the power to our neighborhood, which we, in Papillion, all of our lines are underground. We thought, heck, we're impervious to this, right? Because all of our power lines, it's not like a car's going to hit a pole and knock the wires down, or they're not going to get saggy heavy from snow. But there was so much snow and ice, it broke the high tension feeder wires. It literally, we heard this crack, and it was like lightning hitting, and we're like, what was that? It was the two wooden poles for the high tension line snapping at the ground, and the whole high tension line came down and shut down power to the entire neighborhood. It also shut down power to part of Gretna, I think. We were down for days. We had a generator in the garage. We had 10 gallons of fuel in a generator, and that kept the refrigerator going. It was hot when that happened. Or was it snow? I can't remember why that happened. Oh no, I think it was not a tornado, but surface level winds. I don't know. Some lovely Kimberly, remind me how that happened. But anyway, so we had a generator. It wasn't a super expensive backyard, generator, but a lot of our neighbors on the block had generators. The ones who didn't, we ran an extension cord to their house, and now they had some power too. It goes a long way when you can take your kids who are used to having a device in front of their face all the time, and all of a sudden they can play Xbox again. It doesn't use that much power to play an Xbox, So it was one of those things that got the neighborhood through it, right? So you can do some simple things like that. Make sure you got some food in the house. Make sure you're prepared for storms like today. Make sure that you're good to go, that you've got everything you need to stay in the house for a couple days if you have to. That's probably the biggest thing you can do. I mean, you're not going to be able to do, and everyone freaks out about radiation and everything. And yes, if you live next door to a nuclear power plant, you should freak out about radiation. But radiation distributes, and it has a very quick half-life actually. So you're not gonna your face isn't gonna melt off. You're gonna wake up the next morning and the sun's gonna come up, and the whole world's gonna be a mess, but the sun's gonna come up, and someone's got to have their brain on to put everything back together again. That's where I would focus if I was in that situation, rather than going out and looting some moron is gonna loot the Walmart to grab every flat screen TV they can, not realizing that they're all fried. And it's like someone's going to see a moron carrying a big TV on their back when there's not going to be power for 2 years and the TV is fried anyway. And there's no TV station anymore. It's just... So anyway. All right, so yes, the lovely Kimberly says that wasn't snow, it was a tornado. That's right, a wind event. Okay, so you guys get the idea. So I'm not saying you go out and buy like 50 years of food and build a bunker in the basement or anything, but reasonable preparations, it's pretty smart. I mean, not all of you are so young that you don't remember Grandma and Grandpa canning stuff and doing stuff like that. And again, I'm not saying you need to go down to the basement and get out the stone and crack the wheat. You don't have to go crazy with it, but it's a good idea, especially if you have little ones depending on you, it's a good idea to be okay. To make sure you have enough to help out a neighbor if they need help, things like that. Make sure you got a way to heat your house. If you don't have electricity, heat is important. Don't count on the government. Something like this happens, FEMA can't respond because FEMA's equipment is all down. So you're literally on your own. It's a weird thing to think about in today's world, isn't it? No help coming, you're on your own. It's like Pioneer Days all over again kind of thing. So anyway, so from a good news perspective, imagine how fast would drain the swamp, baby. If there's no power, no money, no banking, all the politics go away and everyone's a neighbor again. You know what I mean? That might be a real good thing. If you're going to take a positive from a really down story, that would be the thing to take from it. All right, so if any of you have any questions, this would be the time to ask them. We can go ahead and cover anything you got here. Does he remember anniversaries? Oh, because I can't remember when the power went. Oh, come on. Yes, I do remember. For the record, I remember the anniversary. I'm just saying. Oh, it's going to happen now. He's actually better at it than me. Oh, yeah? All right. We are guys. That's how we roll. Okay. Be prepared. Yeah, the Scout motto is be prepared. The trouble is, how do you be prepared for something like this? How can you possibly be prepared for something like this? Just think about the amount of raw knowledge that'll be lost if something like that would happen. Like, how many of you know how to plant vegetables? Like, I mean, I know how to, you take the seed, you put it in the dirt, and you put water on it, right? But when do you plant them? When is the best way to plant them? When do you ever clip their leaves off or anything? I don't know. I was never, my dad was into that stuff and he was growing stuff all the time. But for me, it was the chore, right? I had to go out and till the garden and turn the soil because my dad had a kid, and that's what I did. So I never really enjoyed it. So when I grew up, I never really wanted to do it. My wife does gardening every spring. She's got strawberries going and tomatoes going, and all kinds of raised beds, all kinds of good stuff going. Compost tea, all the stuff you're supposed to have to make this happen for backyard gardening. And I call some bags around for her, and I help when she asks me to. But I eat the vegetables when they're done. But yeah, I don't have a burning desire to go plant potatoes or vegetables or anything. So yeah, how do you prepare for something like that? It's an interesting question. It's a good thought experiment. So if you're stuck at home today, imagine you had to stay at home for the next, let's just say, month. You had to stay at home for a month. You were a prisoner in your home for a month. What would you do? How long could you last? Where would you go for supplies? And see, it's like a game of Clue all of a sudden. You can make a whole game out of this. Yeah, we should make a board game called EMP. All right. He was up late last night helping me with a home improvement project. Yeah. Are you making excuses for me? I am a little punchy, but all right. So that's my cue, I think. So questions, guys. If you have questions, technology related, story related from the show, Schrock related, anything like that, I'm happy to answer them. We're super proud. I am super proud of the staff in Lincoln. That young staff winning Best of Lincoln this year. They for the better half of the year 2018, we were running Lincoln on trainees. It was myself, one transfer from the Omaha Service Center, and trainees. So for those trainees to do that well and win Best of Lincoln, it was they didn't understand what an accomplishment it was, because number one, they didn't know what it was. Like, Best of Lincoln, what is that? We get awards. Is that award season? Yes, there's an award season when all the business awards come out. So basically, it was a big deal. Once they realized what a big deal it was, that really was an eye opener, and I think they were taking some pride in it as well. But anyway, so I thank you everyone in Lincoln that voted for us in the Best of Lincoln. And KFOR is the station that puts that on in Lincoln. We really appreciate your votes and the effort that you put into making sure that our people got rewarded for their hard work. I always say when you win an award like that, it's a reflection of the work that was done previously, and you can feel good about it today. But it's just a reminder that you have to keep going. You have to keep doing it. Just because you won the award doesn't mean you're done. You keep going. You try to find ways to deliver even better service going forward. All right. So no questions. I'm not seeing any new questions or comments or anything, guys. So I'm guessing you've had your fill. See, I have to talk for the hour on the radio because I pay for that time. I have to fill that. Here, I can end this anytime I want. User participation's a requirement on Facebook. Oh boy, yeah, they were talking. I think it was Keith was giving me grief during the show. Like, someday I'll figure out I can podcast from home. Well, I do. I've got this microphone at home. I don't have this cool boom arm. It's like a tabletop microphone. I'd have to lean over like this. Today in the news, So I've got the microphone. I've got a little mini board with the dials and the levels and everything, and I can do that. I've got the computer, obviously, so I can mix the music in and play the things I need to play. I also have two small children, though, and they like to be part of the program, if you know what I mean. And so in a situation like this, my wife is like, maybe we should be prepared for, like, when it's a blizzard outside, you don't have to drive clear across town. You can just do the show from home. And I'm like, the limiting factor is actually the phone lines. Well, like today we would have been fine, right? I mean, the first 3/4 of the show, there weren't any calls. But I don't have, landlines coming into the house, and there's no way for really, I mean, there's a way to do it, but not a good way, to pipe the cell phone into the computer system so we can get the live on air stuff. You can do that with Skype a little bit, but I'd have to redirect the 800 number just for that one day, and you can't do that on a Sunday morning. You'd have to do that on a Friday afternoon when you can call the business office for the phone company. It gets kind of tricky. So if I'm going on vacation, for example, and I need to record a show, I usually come into the studio and record it because they've got everything here for me. I don't have to get the digital files for the audio and mix it all together. All I have to do is cut the segments, and like someone who's really good at their job, like Scott Voorhees, comes in and says, boom, 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 boom. There, everything is put together. Beautiful show, just like you're here. So that's a lot better than Thor having to do it, honestly. And it sounds better than if I did it. But I don't know. But if I had to do it, I could do it from home. Or, the other thing is, if I get stuck, I could say, Dennis, I need to run a rerun of last week's show on the air, and then while it's on the air, I could start a Facebook Live from at home. I'm like, hey, let's compete with myself to see how I can get more listeners. Who's listening to which program today? We could do something like that. It'd be kind of funny too. Now, one of the back of my mind goals, and we got a lot of stuff coming in 2019, so now's not the time for me to introduce new projects, but I really want to replace the TV help and support segments that we were doing on the Omaha Morning Blend, where every week we were bringing you a tip or something to watch out for, or something that can make your computing life easier. Those video tips were better than the one-off Facebook posts, because they were packaged so we could boost them on Facebook, and it was like really helpful for people to see, and it really helped build our brand. I really want to get back to. I've even considered like maybe I should build a little studio, like a little TV studio, because everybody has time to do that. And we can just shoot it with a cell phone. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Cell phone with a bigger mic or something. If only I knew somebody who had an interest in making cell phone videos and the equipment to do it. Darn, I don't know anybody like that. Anyway, yes, I mean, if we did something like that, maybe we could do it ourselves. But it's a lot easier, just like the radio station. It's a lot easier when you have a TV station that's all geared up for that and has all the professionals to make it look professional every time. That helps out a lot as well. All right, let's see here. Would I have to pay sales tax on a holiday special since we don't pay sales tax in Montana? No, basically we charge sales tax. The sales tax laws are in flux right now, and our website still operates under the principle if we don't have a physical presence in your state, we do not assess, collect, or remit sales taxes. The laws on that are changing, so in the future we may need to, but at this point right now, if you purchase it with a Montana address, you're not going to be assessed any sales tax on your order because you're out of state. If you purchase it with an Iowa address right now, you will not be assessed sales tax because we don't have a physical presence in the state of Iowa. Once we open up our Des Moines location, however, we will have a physical presence in the state of Iowa, and at that point we'll have to start collecting and remitting sales tax no matter where you are in the state of Iowa to the state of Iowa, if that makes sense. So if you're outside of Nebraska, that's where the only state we have a presence is Nebraska. If you're outside of Nebraska, we're not going to assess any sales tax on your order. Should we? There's an argument that could be made that we could, but there's also the argument that's like we're so small that the one or two computers we sell a year aren't going to warrant the attention of the tax assessors in any particular state. Not that they would have any jurisdiction to actually come after us, and we would just pay the sales tax anyway. So it's like, it doesn't make any sense. Now keep in mind though, if you are required in your state to pay sales tax for purchases, you're still required to remit the sales tax yourself back to the state. So make sure you do that. There's not a reason they collect it from the businesses rather than the individuals or anything. No, not at all. When are you branching out to St. Augustine so I can take advantage of holiday? Well, you can take advantage of the holiday special now, Kathy. It's a wasteland here. So yeah, you can take advantage of it here. So basically, okay. Inside baseball, right? The AfterSchrock is where we can talk about things that don't fit during the program. So this definitely would be way outside of what would fit in the program. But the bottom line is we have a really good thing going at Schrock. We have great service. We have a great training model. We have internal systems that make other computer repair services blush when they hear about it. The amount of things that has to happen for us to simply call you and tell you your computer is ready. The amount of checks that go into that. Yeah, you blow out every laptop we see. Yeah, we blow out we wipe down your laptop too. Why do we wipe down your computer before we give it back to you? Because people bring us these filthy, some of these computers are filthy, right? And we clean them before we send them back. We blow out the keyboards, we wipe them down, with the appropriate cleaners. We get everything. If there's a sticker residue on there, we're going to get it off the lid. Why do we do that? Simple. When you pick up a computer from us, you can't see that we did anything because it's all inside. The only thing you have to look at to know that we even touched that computer is if it looks different than it did when you brought it in. So if it's clean when you take it home, you know that we paid enough attention to it to clean it. We probably paid enough attention to do our job too. And it's a psychological thing. It's something that other shops don't do. And if we miss it, it's not the end of the world. But it's those little things that make us different. So the thing here is we're a family-owned company, guys. I own Schrock Innovations. I have 3 children at home, and so there's always a delicate balance of how bold and aggressive can I be in the expansion of my company, and what is the proper decision for our family. Um, we need to get this we need to double the size of our company before we get to a point where we're going to attract outside investment to do rapid growth expansion. So basically, the things that are needed for rapid growth expansion outside of, hey, let's put a service center in Florida, let's put one in Montana, let's put one in Arizona, let's put one over in Iowa. Yeah, anybody can call up realtors and get that ball going, but then what happens when your staff decides they don't want to show up for work from Florida that day? What do you do? Who is the middle manager that gets on an airplane to go to Florida for 3 weeks while we hire staff? Or who is the inspector that makes sure that our service center in Arizona is doing the same things that our service center in Lincoln is doing? Some of this stuff can be achieved through technology, which is one of the reasons we're building this new online system. I always talk about the customer facing side of it, how it's going to make your life easier, how it's going to allow us to create an app for Schrock that actually has some utility. We could create an app now, but I don't know why anyone would install it. But if it actually had some cool stuff in it that you could do, that's a whole different ballgame, right? So the forward-facing stuff is the stuff I talk on the radio about, but the rear-facing stuff, the fact that my staff won't have to manually send me end-of-day reports anymore, the fact that customers will be contacted programmatically rather than relying on a human to pick up the phone. Humans will still pick up the phone and do it, and the human will get an automated reminder to do that, but the system will also digitally contact the customer as well. So you'll get the human phone call, because that's what most people want, but you'll also get the digital reminders that make sure that you get reached in case the human was going to pick up the phone to call you and somebody walked in and then the phone rang and then 26 people renewed their endpoint and then it was 8 o'clock, so we went home that day, and the next day we came in and someone said, oh, this paper is here, this didn't get filed, it's done back there, I'll go ahead and file it, and that person never got called. And yes, they're supposed to get called every 2 days, which requires a person every 2 days. And we have a system for everything. Every 48 hours, if you don't pick up your computer, you're supposed to get another call from us. Every 48 hours, if we're waiting on a decision on whether or not to repair a computer, you're supposed to get a call from us asking if you have a decision yet. Because we don't want, the faster we get your computers out of our service center, number one, the faster you get them back. Number two, the less likely it is they become damaged in the service center, and the less likely we get this huge horde of computers that just get forgotten about. The more things we have in the service center, the more disorganized things can become. So we found the best way to keep things organized is through a minimalist approach. So our systems are designed for minimalistic approaches. So the problem that we have is the cost associated with hiring. I'm a startup guy. I started Schrock Innovations. I'm what they call a startup entrepreneur. So I'm good at spinning up something from nothing and making it into something. I don't have the right skill set internally to scale a company to the size that Schrock would need to be scaled, to the levels of middle management that would have to be put into place. My passion is for making sure my customers get great service. My passion is not business system design. I can do it, I have to do it because I'm an entrepreneur, but wouldn't it be better for me to hire somebody who has a passion for business system design, as boring as that sounds, and have them do that and maintain those systems to make sure that the levels of service are, isn't that, if I want to make sure service is consistently delivered, is that not the best way to do it? You know, those people are expensive. Now I need accountants in every state. Those people are expensive. Now I need attorneys in every state and corporations in every state. That's a lot of bureaucracy to manage. Now I need a corporate attorney, not just one we put on retainer, but a corporate attorney. Now we're going to have property. We're going to be managing several leases, several build-outs. Equipment has to suddenly be tagged and maintained, because I won't be able just to know how many computers. I can tell you right now there are 3 computers on our tech bench in the Omaha Service Center. There are 4 computers on the tech bench in our Lincoln Service Center. There are 2 PCs and a Mac on the tech bench in the Papillion Service Center. I just know that. Papillion has 2 front desk computers. One of them needs to be replaced because the screen freaks out once in a while. Lincoln has 2. Omaha has 2. The server, we did preventative maintenance on the servers yesterday in Papillion because the snow was coming. It got a little slow toward the end of the day, so we had some extra time, so we used that time to do maintenance checkups on our own equipment because they needed it. How did I know they did it? I just knew. I walked past the server and said, those intakes look kind of, well, mostly clogged. We should probably clean those. When all of a sudden you're dealing with 15, 16, 17, 20, 50 service centers I won't be walking past them every day. So I need somebody that can do that, that they're passionate to do that. So now all of a sudden I need a completely different talent base. And each of these employees are paid like, 70 to 150 grand a year because they are corporate level employees that are going to travel. Um, I don't have the budget for that. So basically, the challenge that we have at Schrock, when you ask, when are you going to put a service center here? When are you going to put a service center there? Guys, if it was me, in my heart, I've got service centers everywhere already. I mean, this is where we go. This is what I've chosen to do with my life. So of course, I want it to be as impactful on the world around me as possible. Anybody does. When you work on something for as long as 20 years, I mean, that's a prison sentence, right? When you work on something for 20 years and you're making a difference for people, you want to make a difference for as many people as you can before the inevitable day comes, hopefully many, 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 many decades down the road, that I have to step aside because I can't do it anymore. But at that point, I want to have a system built that I can have maybe my son step into if he is so desirous to do so, or some other person that has the same passion that I have for helping people. Because we're always going to have tech, we're always going to have questions about it. It's always going to break. We're always going to need something like Schrock. Maybe, like I said, maybe we'll be fixing Androids or something. You never know. So right now, basically, what we're focused on is growing the size. We have to double the size of Schrock Innovations. To do that, we're going to make pushes in corporate services. We're going to make pushes in website design and development. We're also going to open up 1 to 3 new service centers in geographically close enough locations that Thor can get to them within 1 day and get home to his kids to put them to bed at night, should the need arise. I may not be able to spend a lot of time there. Like Des Moines, it's a 3-hour drive. So 3 hours, I can get up at 5 in the morning, be in Des Moines by 8, 9 o'clock, do a full day there, get off at 4 or 5 o'clock, get back home for bedtime at 8. My wife would die being home with the kids all day. But if it had to be done, that's what entrepreneurs do. That's what we do. Kansas City's a possibility. That could happen. Colorado would be a little harder, but it could happen. So I mean, there are possibilities where we can do this. But of course, we're always looking for that great big angel investor to come down from the sky and say, "You do have a good thing going." The problem is most venture capital firms and people in that world are looking for a company that's doing about $5 million a year or more. We're only about half that right now. So we need to double the size of our company to attract the level of investment that would allow us to put service centers in Arizona or Florida or places like that. So in the meantime, we settle for Facebook for being able to be geographically diverse. Just because we don't have a service center doesn't mean we can't start building a following, right? So let's go help people. That's what we're here to do. We can help people through Facebook. We're going to help people through Facebook. If we can help people through our website, we're going to help people through the website. If we can help people over the Schrock desk, let's help people over the Schrock desk. If it comes down to shipping computers to help people to build those relationships, we will ship the computers. If it comes to having to figure out how this little company is going to provide tech support to a computer that we sold to a customer in Arizona, we're going to figure that out, which we have. So it's a fun ride. It's a challenging ride. It keeps me excited every day to come to work and do stuff. But yeah, if you happen to have an extra couple mil laying around in the couch cushions and you're interested in investing, this is not an offer for franchise, offers of franchise, whatever those disclaimers you hear on the radio, like open up your own, Papa John's, whatever. Here's the thing. This is my baby. I'm very, very protective of my baby. And I have my baby, my real babies, but this is my baby. The Schrock Innovations is something that came from here and is helping people and is working and is doing well, and it supports my family. It supports the families of all of our employees. That's a huge responsibility. So we're not going to just go. The first time we expanded into Omaha, some of you may not have known, we attempted Omaha expansion twice. We failed the first time. Did we catch lightning in a bottle in Lincoln with our service center there and happen to get lucky? Maybe. We wouldn't know unless we went to Omaha. So we jumped into Omaha. The lovely Kimberly and I remember this vividly. We bought this like hole-in-the-wall, we didn't buy it. We rented a hole-in-the-wall bay on 83rd and Maple. Totally not anything like what we had in Lincoln. Lessons learned. And we didn't have money for build-out, and they weren't giving us a build-out allowance for this hole-in-the-wall bay. So we bought all the pine trim at Home Depot. We were staining trim and putting up our own drywalls, and they had wobbles in them because I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing. That's why I was up late doing home improvement last night. A normal person would have got it done in the afternoon, but not Thor. We mitered it the wrong way several times before we got it right. And then, so basically, we built up this whole service center. We had a show on, at the time it was a radio station called Magic 590. Chuck Urban was the co-host on the show because we had to have a co-host. It was early radio show days for Thor. I didn't feel comfortable doing a whole show on my own at that time. So Chuck Urban was the co-host, and people listened to the station. It was one of those stations where people had the radio tuned to it for so long that the knob just stopped working. And so they just turned on the radio in the morning and it was on that station. And, we did 125,000 in business that year in that little hole in the wall service center. It was like a validation that the model works. We can get on the radio, provide service, build relationships, and that will convert into relationships that customers will come into the service center for help when they need help. In fact, one of the first customers that came through the door of the original Omaha Service Center, his name was Lanny Fisher. I don't know if he's still around or not. I haven't heard from Lanny in a while, but Lanny Fisher was, and he saw the lovely Kimberly in there, and he said, "Hey, Toots, how you doing?" And she looked at him. After he left, she was like, "I swear, if he calls me Toots ever again." So it was one of those funny stories. But then Magic 590 became Big Sports 590. Because no one was listening to it, and that's why it was so cheap that we could afford it. At the time we approached KFAB, we were losing our radio show. They did not let us to stay on. They didn't let us stay on the sports station because obviously we're not a sports show. So we approached KFAB, and again, early days of the radio show, they listened to some of the demos we had, and they were just like, "We don't think you're KFAB material, Thor. Sorry." And so we couldn't get on KFAB at any price. So we jumped on KCAR instead, which is another Omaha station, another AM station in Omaha. We got on KCAR. We did our thing 6 months on KCAR. We got like 2 customers in 6 months. The listenership was just not there. And as a result, the Omaha Service Center had to roll up its doors. We maintained a bay. I kept a bay rented because all of our programmers were in Omaha. So I kept a bay for them. And also it acted as a depot for us. We sold computers that had warranties on them. I promised people they would have service. Well, we didn't have a tech staff, but I would drive back and forth to Lincoln every day, and people would drop off their computers. I'd take them to Lincoln. We'd fix them in Lincoln and bring them back. And basically, we kept our word. We fulfilled our promises. And then with those lessons learned, we eventually were able to improve the radio show to the point where it was good enough to be on KFAB. We were able to secure a spot here on KFAB, and as a result, we were able to reopen the Omaha Service Center and now the Papillion Service Center in the form that you see it today, which is one of the reasons why we jumped on WHO in Des Moines a year ahead of when we plan on putting a service center in. We want to make sure that the radio station is reaching people. We want to make sure that we can build a following on the station. We're going to be watching the ratings to see if the ratings are climbing for our time slot specifically. And we are seeing, like I said, people are buying computers and doing business on it with us through the Schrock desk from Iowa, in parts of Iowa that don't hear KFAB. So that tells me that something is working, the WHO is working. So as a result, guys, I guess, long story short, how long have we been going here? 43 minutes. It's like a whole nother radio show. It's a money thing. It's a money thing. And, I can go out and get an SBA loan, and I have to put everything I own up. I would have to put my house up. I would have to put my vehicles up. Everything. They'll hit you with if you don't believe in your idea, why should we? And I believe in my idea, and I would have taken that risk 15, 18 years ago. Wouldn't have even blinked. Would have sat down and took that, signed on the paper. Where do you need me to sign? Forget the fine print. Have me sign. Maybe a decade ago, we had an offer for somebody wanted to buy Schrock from me. They were going to give me like $400,000 for Schrock. This is before we had the Omaha Service Center. And it was, my accountant advised me, if someone is willing to pay you $400,000 for this business, you should take the $400,000, Thor. That was his advice before he even looked at the details. It's my baby. I wasn't ready. And I thought there were bigger things that could come from it. And I feel that way today. So I'm not ready to sell or to move on or to go away or stop doing my radio shows or stop helping my customers. But I am acknowledging the fact here that I don't have all the skill sets required to do the level of work that needs to be done to get Schrock ready for that level of expansion. Because the worst thing you can do is just, as I learned when we moved into Omaha, go full bore in, overextend yourself, so if something goes wrong, you have no available funds, no credit, you have to retreat basically, and then have something bad happen to force you to do that. That would be really bad. So that's it, guys. I guess if you happen to know anybody in that market or in that world that usually only invests in those $5 million companies, but can look at us and say, this is a $5 million company with 2 years from now, and we can get in at a really, really good time right now and grow this investment to the point where maybe it becomes a franchise opportunity later. Maybe it becomes an initially public offering, like a publicly traded company, or maybe we just continue to operate, doing our thing, and growing at a nice, steady, controlled pace like we're doing. In 20 years from now, maybe we have 7 or 8 service centers. That's a success. We're still helping people. So anyway, all right. So I've been on my soapbox long enough here. Sorry about that, guys. When are you branching out? It's a wasteland here. I agree. Ex-Lincolnite, Kathy. Cool. Like I found Runza has a limited area of expansion. Yeah, they do. In fact, Runza franchises. So does Valentino's, actually. Valentino's had a terrible time when they were franchising, making sure that their restaurants were conforming to the franchising is hard. Next door to Lincoln, Teriyaki Madness. They fired the whole crew, brought in a training crew. The official word is the owner sold his business. But in my experience, when the corporate franchise comes back in and takes over an operation and fires the entire staff and brings in a training crew and closes the business for training, I guess maybe I don't know anything about franchising, but it seems like something wasn't working right. So anyway, yeah, franchising is hard. I don't know that I want a franchise, guys. Having to go to somebody and yell at them because they didn't feel it was appropriate to wipe down the computer before it goes out. Don't make me pull your franchise license. I know your family eats off this business. Blah, blah, blah. I can't rent property either. I tried being a landlord. I just can't kick people out. You got 3 little kids looking at you. They can't pay the rent this month. They can't pay the rent next month. They can't pay the rent the month after that. And you're like, but if we have nowhere to go, if you kick us out, my kids, it's Christmas, man. And I'm like, all right, just you promise you'll give me a payment next month, I'm too soft for that. Yeah, Runza. In fact, the Runza headquarters is in Lincoln, or is it in Omaha? I don't know. It's in Lincoln or Omaha, and they call it Runza National because it's and whoever does their marketing on the sides of their cups, they deserve an award. There's some funny stuff. Read your Runza cup next time you go to Runza. It's pretty funny. You can almost see me on Shark Tank. Well, yes and no. I don't know. Shark Tank is scary because sharks. No. Shark Tank is scary because what you don't see is the details of these offers these people are given. There's a reason why some people turn the sharks down, because it's basically like you'll hit this number or we own your business and you're out. So you could lose your. So if somebody came to me and said, we're going to expand Schrock to 20 cities, we're going to provide you all the resources and the management help that you need to do it. You're going to act as the figurehead. You're going to do the radio shows. You're going to be the marketing piece. You're going to travel from store to store. You're going to get a frequent flyer. You're going to be going all over the place, making sure that all the stores are doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, and you're going to be home to put your kids to bed every night. And all you have to do is give up 50% of the company. 49, because no one gives up 50, or people either want 51 or 49, and I want to keep 51 for obvious reasons. Look at what Zuckerberg's doing. He needs to be fired, but he can't be fired. I'm not saying I need to be. Maybe I do need to be fired. I don't know. But if somebody came to me and said that, and they said, but if we don't hit 40 million in sales by 2025, we own your whole company. I'm not comfortable with that. That's an unacceptable level of risk for my staff and my family. All right. Don't get too big. You'll lose the personal touch. I'm afraid of that too, Roger. But you see, here's the thing. People in Lincoln already say that. People in Lincoln say before you went to Omaha, the service was a lot better in Lincoln. So it was kind of like a mini lesson. And yes, the service was better in Lincoln when I was there 24/7 because I could micromanage everything. So it's required me as a manager to expand my skills a little bit, become a little bit of a different kind of manager, and hire different talent level people that are more professional and less fly by the seat of the pants, basically. So it's required me to look for different things in employees than I used to look for. So I mean it's one thing. Sorry to bore you, man. I don't want to bore people with a whole bunch of Schrock history stuff, but WHO is a powerful radio station. Ronald Reagan worked there many years ago. Yeah, Johnny Carson was on KFAB too, wasn't he? Wasn't Johnny Carson like? Didn't he appear on? Johnny Carson had something to do with Omaha. He's from Fremont. Johnny Carson was from Fremont.
No, it was Norfolk.
Was it Norfolk?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's from Nebraska. So I mean, yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, Ronald Reagan worked at WHO. That's amazing. When I hit the Powerball, yeah, me too, Kathy. You and me both. Holiday specials. Yeah, we'd have to sell a lot of holiday specials to fund the expansion. A lot more than 150, considering we sell them at cost. Yeah, one time I told my accountant back in the day, 2001, when we started the holiday special, I told him what we wanted to do, and he said, "Let me tell you a story, Thor. There was a guy who had a truck, and he was selling watermelons from his truck. And the watermelons cost him 10 cents a piece. And so he goes out, and he sells his watermelons for 15 cents a piece. And every day he sells some melons, but he doesn't ever sell out. So then his business partner says, 'Hey, I sold all the melons today.' And the guy says, 'What did you do?' 'I marked them down to 10 cents a melon. And I sold out.' You know what this means, right?" And his partner was like, "What?" "I think we need a bigger truck." Thor, you're going to go bankrupt if you do this. Don't buy the bigger truck to try to make it on volume when you're not making any money per unit. It doesn't work. And he is right. It doesn't work in the short run when you're buying a one-time consumable like a watermelon. But when you're buying something that is an investment in a 10-year relationship, I'm telling you the computer's going to last you 10 years. I'm hoping that this is the start of a 10-year relationship where when you need maintenance checkups, you're going to come to us. When you need safe upgrade, you're going to come to us. When you have a problem with the computer, you're going to come to us. When you need that new copy of Microsoft Office, maybe you'll buy it from us instead of buying it from Best Buy or something. That's what we're hoping for. So yes, we don't make money up front. We do limit it because we can't go crazy. But we don't make money up front, but we're hopefully investing in a customer and in a relationship here. That's the hope. That's what he didn't quite see. Valentino's. Kathy gives him a thumbs down. Kathy, I'm kind of partial to Val's. I don't eat their pizza very much anymore, primarily because I worked there for many years, and their pizza's delicious. But when you eat as much Valentino's pizza as I've eaten in my lifetime, yes, it does something to your body. It does something to your mind. But no, I mean, funny story, and this will be the last one, I got to get going. Another computer repair company in Lincoln, that's one of our competitors, is owned by a member of the family that owns Da Vinci's restaurant, or started Da Vinci's restaurant. And so basically, when the story behind Da Vinci's in Lincoln, if you know what Da Vinci's is, it's a local pizza, kind of Italian pizza restaurant. Beautiful murals painted on the ceilings. It's more of like an Italian sidewalk cafe kind of thing. But they do sandwiches, pizzas, subs, things like that. And it's really good. They're good food. But when they went to go start, the guy who started that from the family went to the bank and said, "I need a loan." And the bank said, "What do you want to do?" And he tells him, "I want to start a pizza restaurant in Lincoln." And he's like, "You're joking, right? You want to go up against Valentino's?" And the guy that started Da Vinci's was like, "Well, yeah, I think we can improve some things. I think we can do some things different." And so basically, he got the loan. He started Da Vinci's. Now they have multiple locations around Lincoln. I eat there a couple times a year. It's good food. I mean, I don't hunger for it. Like, ooh, pizza and subs. But if I'm driving past a Da Vinci's and it's lunchtime, you darn right I'll stop. It's good stuff. But their sandwiches are great. I don't eat their pizza because I like Val's pizza better. But their sandwiches are great. Val's doesn't really, well, when I was there, maybe they do now, I don't know. They never sold sandwiches when I was there. They didn't want to they were firm believers in we do what we do well, and we're not going to get into this other stuff. But, times change. So, basically, story of Da Vinci's. Fun story. Anyway, all right, let's see here. No, I was a manager there, Kathy. I learned my customer Valentino's was a formative training experience for me. I worked at Walmart before that. And before that, I was, I worked in men's clothing. I did just college job kind of work. I worked for, at the time it was Rep Big and Tall. Now I think it's Casual Male Big and Tall. It got bought out. But basically, I fit suits on guys, and I learned a lot of my sales techniques actually working in retail clothing. My dad took me to every flea market on the planet, so you learn a lot about individual relationships and haggling and things like that from those flea markets. But anyway, I learned a lot of sales skills from that job. I went to Valentino's where I learned a lot of managerial stuff, a lot of things that you should and shouldn't do as a manager. Also, I learned that planning and forethought are incredibly important if you're going to have a successful business. You need to know how much dough to make in the morning when you're supplying multiple restaurants from one giant vat of dough. Thank you, Ron Dawson. You need to remember to lock the front door at night when you close. What was Matt's last name? Matt was the manager at Val's. I remember Matt. I left the front door open one night, and I got a lecture about how he has enough kids. He had 11 kids, I think. He has enough kids. He doesn't need another one to babysit at work. And that hit home. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not doing my job well. And so it taught me responsibility. I started coming in earlier for my shifts. I started double checking my own work, making sure that it was done right. There's a lot of good skills that were learned at Valentino's. Maybe you don't like their pizza or whatnot, but you gotta. They have a system. They have a system for hiring managers. They have a system for everything. And I learned to create a system from everything from being at Valentino's. Learned about Schrock one Sunday morning, listening to KFAB in Omaha. I love the computer and have taken them all of my computer needs. Hey, thank you, Bonnie. I appreciate that. I was never sure if you paid KFAB for advertising time or if they paid you for filling time with the program. Well, we do pay for our airtime at KFAB. However, KFAB is also incredibly generous to us with other things. For example, I'm using their studio right now to do the AfterSchrock. And they love the fact that we do this. They love the fact that we are the home base for Compute This, and that's going out to many other cities. They could have been a real big pain in our side about this. They could have made, like, I told them I needed some improvements done to the studio. I needed light bulbs. I needed a jack in the wall because I was trying to do this wireless and it wasn't working. I needed the ability to remote into a computer at home so I wouldn't be locked down. They made a lot of adjustments to the studio for this program. So Gary Saddlemeyer here, amazing guy. Scott Voorhees, dude, next generation AM radio rock star guy. I mean, he's the real deal. The afternoons, Chris Baker, amazing. Has me on all the time for tech-related stories that are interesting. Just a great guy, amazing stuff. We have fun when we do those appearances in the middle of the afternoon. It's great for the company. The company loves it, but I love it too. We get on the radio and, Chris will be like, so Thor, how do I avoid getting these viruses on my computer? I'm like, well, Chris, you need to stop going to those websites, just like your mom told you. Told you if you kept doing that, you'd go blind. We have fun, and so KFAB has been a great home base for us. But yes, we do pay for the airtime. We do pay less than we did back when I was begging and super desperate. So they have reflected the thing that we look at take a look at the ratings books, and you'll see our time slot. And the show that immediately follows us is very popular as well for some reason. At least it was until we started doing the AfterSchrock. All right. Kathy, you can listen to KFAB on iHeartRadio. You don't have to miss out. All right, guys, I got to get going, get home here. Hopefully the streets are plowed off a little bit. I figured if I stalled long enough, they might get plowed a little better. Be safe out there today. Don't get a wreck or anything or slide around. It is pretty slippery, a lot of slush out there. But yeah, and if you're thinking about a holiday special, please keep in mind that their time is running out. It's hard for us to get one done. If you buy it today, it's hard for us to get it done before Christmas. Because everyone buys this week, basically. And when they buy this week, we get this huge load that are right before Christmas. So if you're thinking about a holiday special laptop or desktop, now is the time to pull that trigger if you want it before Christmas. If you can wait till after Christmas, if it's not a Christmas gift, let us know that at the front desk, and we won't make you wait unnecessarily. But it's nice to know if we have to make a decision between ruining this kid's Christmas or getting yours, the day after Christmas, that we can push you back a day. And you can save someone's Christmas. Kind of fun. Last funny story, I promise, then I gotta go. God, one more thing. So the other day, I went to Cold Stone, and I got some ice cream for me and the kids and the wife, and I was taking it home, and so it was the day before Thanksgiving? Yeah, it was the day before Thanksgiving, and so Cold Stone was weirdly busy. Oh, no, it was the day after Thanksgiving. It was the day after Thanksgiving. They were busy because of all the shopping. So they were weirdly busy, and so there's a line, and there's never a line at Cold Stone. There's all these kids in line, and there's this really cute kid behind me who said, "Excuse me, sir, are you in line here?" And I was in line, but I was kind of stepped back because I was looking at the board and everything. I didn't want to crowd the people in front of me, and his mom was shushing him like, "Yes, he's in line. Don't bother that man." And I've got kids. I'm like, "Yeah, buddy, I'm in line here. I'm gonna get some ice cream. What kind do you like?" I'm just making chit chat with him, whatever. So I get up to the register to pay for the ice cream. And I've heard of this happening at Chick-fil-A, but I've never seen it happen anywhere else, and I've never caused it to happen anywhere. So I thought this would be fun. So I paid the $20 in ice cream for the family behind me, as well as mine, of course. I paid for mine, and I put $20 cash on the register. I said, "This is for their ice cream. If there's anything left over from it when they buy, you can put it in the tip jar, or whatever. But buy their ice cream, and let's just see if they'll buy the people's ice cream behind them, right?" And so, yeah, yesterday I stopped in and grabbed a couple caramels, and they're like, "Hey, you're that guy." I'm like, "That guy?" What did I do? And they're like, "No, you're that guy that paid it forward the other day." And I'm like, "Okay, that's a thing, okay." And they said, "No, it actually went on all night until we closed." And it wasn't like you paid for that whole family's ice cream, but most people just left like $3 or $5 or whatever. But everybody left something for the family behind them, so that the family behind them wouldn't have to pay as much. And I'm like, that's so cool. It never happens. I hear at Chick-fil-A, like somebody at lunch buys the car behind them, and then all of a sudden, like they just keep doing it for the car behind them, and it goes on like all day. And everybody basically, they pay for a lunch. They're just paying for somebody else's lunch. It's kind of cool. And except, there's that one family that actually could really use that help. That they're scraping dimes to get their kids some lunch or something, and they get a free lunch, and it makes an impact. So it was kind of cool. So anyway, if you have the opportunity to do something cool like that this holiday season, I would encourage you to do it. It's a really, really fulfilling feeling when you hear that something that you started like that reverberated and impacted so many people. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you clicking like and sharing the program and sharing not just the AfterSchrock, but the show itself. It really helps us spread the word. Anybody who clicks the little thumbs up or the like button, it actually allows me to invite you to like the page, which makes sure that you're aware when we do a show, it pops up in your feed so that you can see it a little easier. So good stuff there. All right, thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you again next Sunday for another edition of Compute This.